This is it, episode 3, Origins Unknown podcast. My name is Chris Holt.
Hey guys, I'm Claire Huntington. And Chris, I've really got to be honest, I'm super nervous about this episode because we dig really deep into my past and we actually figure out 3 of my origins unknown.
Well, that's the hard part about Claire and I giving people real-time access to all of this, because typically this is kind of a private thing.
Super private. And on top of that, whenever I would tell people I was adopted growing up, I would always hear stuff like, you don't look adopted, which really was off-putting and confusing. I started telling people that I was adopted AF.
Oh my God, adopted AF. Yes, a boy named Sue, adopted AF. I think that could be a thing.
Also, this was a really interesting episode because Chris and I walked through adoption in Saskatchewan in the 80s, and there was a huge amount of post-adoption services available to me, and Chris doesn't really have access to that.
Thank you all for your support thus far. It's been overwhelming, and we really couldn't have done any of this without you, our listeners.
Thanks so much, guys.
I think I walked the long way home. Now fall, just pick me up and hold me close when things get rough. And you never walk the road alone, 'cause we've all got our origins unknown.
All right, episode 3, Origins Unknown podcast. I am Chris Holt.
I'm Claire Huntington.
And this episode, we are going to dive deeper into adoption in the 80s in Canada. So a lot of this stuff I honestly know nothing about.
Same.
So this is same. So
Yeah.
we're on the same page. That's cool.
Yeah, so I had no idea. I actually found out, so you guys are in for a treat today. We are actually discovering, I think, 3 of my unknown origins today.
Yep. So this episode might get real. So we'll play it by ear.
You guys, as you guys can see, I'm already got all the emotions.
Yeah.
I talked to my mom today and got some notes, and apparently I'm going to find out what hospital, and then what city,
Yep.
and what time I was born.
And mind you, everyone, she does not know. So everything she's going to read today is in real time. It's happening in the moment. So we're super excited that you're here to experience this with her, with me, and obviously get to know more about adoption in Canada.
If you are also an adoptee in Saskatchewan, you want to really listen to the veto section. I found out that the legislation changed heavily on January 1st, 2017. I'm not sure if it's because I've been living out of the province of Saskatchewan. I've been working at design firms in Calgary and out of the province. So fellow Saskatchewan adoptees, if you could let me know if there was something that was either mailed to you, my mom said nothing was mailed to her, or if you had heard about this change, but there are huge changes that have happened to Saskatchewan legislation that are going to directly impact you. So
Yeah, and this whole veto thing is very interesting to me because I don't...
it's aggressive.
Yeah, it's aggressive, but I don't even know if there's something similar to that in Korea. So this is all interesting.
So first off, I do want to say that in doing research for this, I realized that adoption laws are dependent on the location, the province, state, country, also the year that you were adopted. So there are adoption legislations that if you had a closed adoption, if the law was present at the time that you were adopted in many of the cases, and your parental rights were, you gave them up as a bio parent, that's going to be what reigns.
Got it. That's interesting.
So I was in a closed adoption. And so just because now they do open adoptions doesn't mean that those same rules apply. So I went into adoption service, Saskatchewan's post-adoption services. And so they have, and I'm going to link all this for you guys, and I'm probably going to apply for the veto on the phone with you guys, or like we'll do it on a future episode.
Yep.
Okay. So there are different eligibilities to apply for as an adoptee. I am an adoptee, so I can apply for everything because I'm a first party. There are parents of an adoptee, and then there are the birth mother or bio mother, and then there are children of the birth or bio mother. Okay. So Now, so there are birth registration that I can get. So you can be eligible to receive birth registration that has information such as your name. So I could find out my name if I did this, as well as the child's birth name, place of birth, and the name of the hospital. But these are subject to vetoes, which we'll go through in a little bit. So this is crazy too. I didn't realize this. Birth registration cannot be released until 6 months after the adult adoptee's 18th birthday.
Okay.
So adult adoptees in Saskatchewan, even though you turn 18, you have to be 18 and a half.
That's weird.
I don't understand why. And I'm hoping perhaps that we can maybe talk to someone at Post-Adoption Services.
Oh, I'm sure.
About that.
Like set up right off the bat, this is way more organized than anything I've seen in Korean adoption. So and
I'm finding this out. I really like Saskatchewan in terms of that. So I'm going to take a drink because this is a heavy episode for me.
Yeah, mind you, if you're not watching this and you're listening to it, if you hear glasses, clinking, drinking, swallowing, sorry. This is a heavy episode, so we thought we'd partner it with libation.
Yes. So adult adoptee search. So something that's new in Saskatchewan, and I have to find the date, but you couldn't search for your birth father. You can now search for birth father information if he was put on the file or if he's mentioned anywhere in the records. Okay. However, this crazy part that adds rejection, they'll contact him, and then if he says no, he can still reject. But okay. If you're a birth father and your name does not appear in the birth registration, you may be eligible to search for the adult adoptee based on file information.
So they can search for you?
Yes. And I can search for them. This is what I think I'm going to get. This is my money ticket right now and where I think most adoptees start. Non-identifying background information, NIBI, which I like that You may apply for a NIBI if it is confirmed you are a birth parent or an adoptee. So this is the adoptee version. So the NIBI includes information and documents from the adoption record, which by law must have third-party information removed.
So basically, they're setting up laws to give both parties options, essentially.
Yeah.
Which is the total opposite of Korean adoption. It's
yes. Yeah. Well, if you also think about it, in Saskatchewan, I can't say my own province. Saskatchewan adoption, both the adoptee for the most part and the adopter and the adoptee and the bio parent are going to be from the same province. Okay. So in Saskatchewan, even our vehicle registration, we only have one.
Oh. Yeah. That's interesting.
It's actually awesome.
That makes it more efficient.
It does. Yeah. Okay.
Canada 1. US 0.
We even have it if you're born in Saskatchewan but adopted out of province. So, all right. So this one doesn't matter. I'm all flustered, guys. I'm not usually... Okay. And then they have part 2, tips for searching.
I love that they have printouts. I mean, I have nothing. I have basically...
I went to Post-Adoption Services Canada, and they were like, here's your post-adoption, and they had this all out. And then apparently in 1987, the year I was born, they created a support group for adoptive parents. Oh. And whatnot. So, but then they had this like really helpful step-by-step PDF.
Oh, this is like a birth parent search for dummies type of thing. Like it really maps it out for you, which is kind of nice.
Yeah. So, and then this tells me what I would have gotten in my information when I was adopted. It could vary, but adult adoptees receive from birth registration. So that this is what one of the things I can search for. This is a more in-depth search than the NIBI. Got it. So I would if I get the birth registration, which this might be a season 2, I don't know. Birth parent's name, birth father's name may or may not be listed. Yeah. And then my birth mother's age, year of birth, or exact birth date, her address, if found in the birth registration. But the address could be provided with someone who she was staying with at the time. Mm-hmm. I did find out that in Saskatchewan, a lot of people would go to larger cities back in the 80s, that the hospitals didn't have the capacity to birth babies. Okay. So just because I was born in, I don't know, I think I in like one place, it would be possibly from a surrounding town.
Oh, got it.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So, and then they give you like little ways to search.
Yeah. I mean, I know if you're listening, you can't see this, but everyone that's watching, like it's all like bullet points and
like, and then there's linked PDFs. I love Canada.
Yeah. No, Korea's just like, oh, these are fake documents. Sorry.
Okay, so here's the forms that I might need. Like contact preference, acknowledgement of contact preference, veto, birth parent application for service, application for voluntary contact medical search. So it's all really well written. And I'm going to link this. And actually, we might post a copy of this in this episode file.
Yep.
Okay. Here's where it gets very... And I called my mom and I read this off and I said, this sounds very Game of Thronesy.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I'm going to let you...
Read the veto?
So there are two things. I'll just give a preamble to this because it's very... Yeah. So if you were adopted... and you were adopted prior to January 1st, 2017, and since January 1st, 2017, if you are a Saskatchewan adoptee, something I didn't realize, my biological family can try to reach out to me at any time. I'm no longer protected under the laws of it is to me to go search.
Okay.
They can now contact post-adoption services and request to talk to me.
Because you're above, or because of that date, or because you're above...
Because
18. Got it.
And because I'm above 18. Yeah. So, this is also important. You can't know any information in Saskatchewan under the time period that I was adopted, close adoption, until you're 18 and a half.
Yep.
So that's another thing. It's that you can't know.
Like...
Even if your parent, I believe, even if my mom and dad asked to find it, they wouldn't let me.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of like,
yeah.
I could buy smokes before I could find out who it was.
Right. It's so funny. Well, you guys can drink at 18, right?
Only in Alberta and
got it.
I think BC.
Okay.
I will admit that I did go to university in Alberta for art school and for that reason. So it's 19 in Saskatchewan.
Wow.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to let you read. So this is very important. Saskatchewan adoptees. What is a veto?
All right, veto. You are eligible to place a veto against the release of your identifying information on the birth registration if you were adopted prior to January 1st, 2017. If you place a veto, your identifying information will be removed from the birth registration before it is provided to your birth parents, or if they are deceased, to their children. Your veto will terminate upon your death. Sorry, I said that last part like that.
It's okay. And then a contact preference.
Contact preference. You are eligible to place a contact preference that accompanies the release of the identifying birth registration, which applies regardless when your adoption was granted. If you place a contact preference, your identifying information is released, but you have the opportunity to state what type of contact you want from your birth parents, including no contact. Your contact preference will terminate upon your death.
Now read, this is important.
If your adoption was granted prior to January 1st, 2017, you are not able to place both a veto and a contact preference. You can only place one or the other. Why?
I don't know. I'm going to ask someone about that. But so here's the kicker. If you are an adoptee in Saskatchewan, and I'm going to look into different provinces, but I wasn't aware that at any time I could just be, on Facebook or, I don't really go on Instagram or watching Netflix, and I could get a call from adoption services saying someone's looking for you.
That would be so jarring.
Like, you could just be going through your day and like, right? And like,
did you ever think about that growing up? Like, what if, regardless of knowing any of this stuff, like, did you ever think, oh, what if they come looking for me? Or, yeah, that never.
Because I was protected. I was protected under a different law.
No, but set laws as a person, as a kid, did you ever think, what if they come looking for me? I mean, I wonder if other adoptees think like, oh, what if my birth parents are looking for me? Like, what if they're wondering, are they wondering about me?
I wonder on my birthday sometimes. I always wonder that. Used to always be like a weird thing.
It's like, have you seen that movie Tangled?
Yeah.
With the lights, the lanterns? On her birthday?
So really funny, guys. I'll show you this. I literally have the hair from Tangled.
Oh, yeah. When they cut it.
In like the one
brown.
round. I'm sorry. I'm growing out an undercut because pandemic.
Yeah.
So this is crazy to me that I had no idea. And again, adoptees in Saskatchewan, let me know if you guys knew this. Like, That's huge. That's a huge
It's
change.
huge. Again, I'm just overwhelmed by how organized this is. But yes, that
I was
it's-
stressed out.
it's
I called
weird.
both my parents and the immediate panic that we had. So I don't know. I'm wondering if I could place this that only like my siblings could find me.
Yeah.
But like I feel like when you find one, you find them all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
And also, guys, if you guys are going to be starting to do your adoption search and you're not sure of the everything's going to be different based on what year, what place, what country. I've found out that people were adopted across the border a lot because they were pretty loosey-goosey with the border. I know now we need a passport and whatnot, but they were adopting kids back and forth across the border. So please reach out at hello@originsunknownpodcast.com. I really enjoyed researching this, and we would love to help you go through and figure that out. And it's overwhelming to do it for yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that part of this whole podcast, most of the people that will be listening or tuning in, I mean, a lot of the stuff, some of it will be kind of new knowledge for all of us. So, you know, I want everyone to view this podcast as a very organic, open platform kind of system where, like we said from the very beginning, we're not experts here. We're learning as we go on many topics, and there are a lot of topics that we know nothing about. So, you know, feedback is imperative. We welcome it with open arms. So please email us if you have any information or, again, any topics you'd like to hear.
So I'm not ignoring you guys and texting. My mom texted me this information today, and I got home and gathered a few things together. A few of these things I was saving to put in your baby book. I might have more notes in an old external hard drive. I'll try to hook that up later. I'll send what I have right now. Okay. It says, and I'm going to put all this on the episode, but it says, I'm brand new. I weighed, and I've never seen this before, you guys, so I had no idea. I weighed 5 pounds, 8 ounces.
Oh, I know how much I weighed.
How much did you weigh?
Like under 2 pounds. But you have to also remember I'm a triplet, and we were prematurely born.
Why do you always have to be skinnier than me?
I mean, if we were born in Sparta, we've been thrown off the cliff.
No, they probably would have thought you were some sort of like Roman god or something.
No, we were weak little, like you saw the baby picture. I look like an alien. Anyway.
My eye color was blue, but my eyes, as you can know, are like really weird and dichromatic and different.
Yeah.
But my hair was light brown, which I don't know. From that picture, I don't think so. But,
no, that looked blonde.
The name that was chosen for me was Claire Danielle, and it says your grandma Williams, and this is my my adopted family's grandma Williams' middle name was Claire. Great grandma's was Claire, and we liked the name. She said to look at that. What's 2046? 8:46.
2046. Oh, time?
Yeah.
Yeah, 8:46. That's when you were born? PM? What time is it? It's almost 8 o'clock at 8:46. No, we're not going to be on this podcast for, well, actually, yeah, maybe close. No, never mind. That's cool. I don't even know what time we were born. 8:46.
Ha.
What's that yellow Post-it?
As she said it, she wrote there on there.
Oh.
My mom loves Post-it. I'm like, okay.
All right, 8:46.
I'm doing a birth chart tonight, I guess, maybe.
So this is, I think, also touching upon the idea that I think a lot of people that are not adopted have this information. They take it for granted. So, you know, you need to understand the context here. You know, you're in your mid-30s and...
Mid-30s?
Or below mid-30s, sorry. 33.
That snapped me out real quick.
You're like, wait, what? No, not cool. Not cool. And, you know, you just don't know any of this stuff. And it's a lot of stuff that you wonder forever. You know other people that have all their information and they're just like, hey, look at me. I know exactly everything about me. So.
I love that you didn't try to hug me.
No.
That was great.
Yeah. Did we talk about that on?
We did. So if you guys didn't listen to our last episode, we talked about how we both self-soothe, and we're not sure if that's because we're adopted, but
I would like to get a survey on that.
we should figure that. We should do an Instagram post about that.
I want to ask my CAD group.
I want to ask my total group. I have a group now.
Yeah.
And then we'll show. I also got a picture, you guys, of me when I was first born, and we'll show that after with your photo.
Yep.
Oh.
What's that?
Oh. Okay. Origin 2, I was born in Regina.
Okay.
I didn't know that.
Oh, okay.
Origin number 3, I was born at the Regina General Hospital.
Wait, what does that mean, origin number 3?
Like
Oh,
my
sorry.
third origin.
Yeah.
So my aunt, I'm going to have to double check and see. My aunt is a labor and delivery nurse. And basically, I swear she's probably delivered every baby in Regina. So I'm going to have to see if she was at the Regina General. That'd be crazy. I weighed 5 pounds, 8 ounces. My height was 18 inches.
No idea what we were. We were preemies. We're probably the size of a hand.
I think it's like a foot and a half. No, it's not. Can we strike that if I'm wrong? 12.
We'll fact check.
12 inches. 12 inches of a foot. And then that's 6 inches. Yeah. My head measured 14 inches.
Why does that sound
Big.
large? Well, you know what they say.
Big head.
Larger the head, the larger, or bigger the head, the bigger the star. That's from
Okay.
Entourage.
My chest was 12 inches.
Again, I have no idea what
I don't know. I've never cared about baby measurements because they didn't apply to me.
12 inches. I don't know.
Okay.
Well, a 5-pound baby seems pretty average. That's not bad. At least you weren't like a 10-pound baby. Those things are.
My niece was, I think, 9 pounds, 3 ounces.
Yeah. One of my best friends was 10.5 pounds. And he was a twin.
Oh, gosh. She used index cards. Oh, she's... okay. So, okay.
She's just looking through some photos.
So I was adopted on December 16th. I spoke to my dad today, and apparently they'd waited for 5 years for me. And apparently they were hosting my dad's office Christmas party. I believe he was the director, or he was the boss at the time. And so they found out on the Friday, and they came to social services. And if I'm remembering incorrectly, my parents will let me know. But apparently it was like in a strip mall, which is kind of funny because I always loved strip mall convenience stores. They met me there, and then they had, I believe, until Sunday to decide if they wanted me.
What do you mean that your father was waiting for 5 years?
My parents waited for 5 years to adopt me. They were on a list for 5 years.
Oh, got it.
So they adopted
just for a baby, and then you happen to, or they...
Any baby for a girl. I believe a girl. So they had my brother. They adopted my brother, and then they requested a sister. And I think they told him, like, do you want a sister? And he got all excited. And then at that point, I think they had given up hope. And then they had 3 days to decide if they wanted me. Wow. So apparently people stayed till extremely late, as one does at your Christmas party. And they were catatonic. And then they got me. And then something people don't understand, that if you are an adoptive parent, oftentimes... Like if you conceive a child, you have 9 months to prep for it. Mm-hmm. You have 9 months to prep for it, and you go through the whole pregnancy process. You nest, you get things, you have a baby shower. A lot of adoptive mothers didn't get baby showers back in the day. They also didn't get maternity leave.
Oh yeah, I mean, I don't think my mom did at all. And
well, I hate to tell you that in Canada we get 1.5 years.
Oh, I'm hyper aware of that
and
because
men
of
also
my
get a
sister-in-law.
leave.
But that's interesting because even though, like, thinking about my parents deciding to adopt triplets, like, I just thought, what if like one day they just woke up a month, like in that little trial period or whatever of making a decision, and I just thought 3 kids at once, all the same age, like that would be insane. No, let's not do this.
Yeah.
And then your whole life changes, you know? But again, you can't live your life like that. I mean, choices were made and...
Yeah, and it's crazy, like, too, here's the other thing that you don't think of. A lot of adoptive parents, and I'll have to double check and think, but I think and see, but I believe there might have been something that fell through midway. But my dad said babies at the time, the mother had 30 days. 30 days to come back and ask for your child.
30 days.
I don't know. I'll have to double check. And granted, you guys have to remember that I'm asking my parents things like midday. Like my dad's power has been out since like 3 a.m, and he's out in the boonies. And he's just trying to like field my questions. And I'm calling them being like, hey, what about this? And it's like repressed. It's been 33 years, right? We all don't remember stuff.
Yeah.
And he said that my brother, there was a risk that they would be able to take my brother back. So imagine that. You get all your baby stuff. You name the baby. You connect with the baby and somebody comes and takes it away.
Yeah. And I'm sure anyone that's listening, you might be part of that type of situation, which is heartbreaking. And, you know, those are also stories that we want to talk about and discuss and share, because I think a lot of people don't realize how gray the whole situation is. It's not so cookie cut and black and white, that there are lots of different scenarios that can cause situations like that to happen.
And then picture this, that they had 3 days. So my 30-day period had already passed, but I had been in an institution, I guess, or something had happened. So we don't know. My situation was different from my brother's. And I'm getting the sense that my brother's was pretty cute and like happy, and mine was a little bit different. So I was in foster care. I also found out a lovely woman, one of my dad's good friends, his mother was my caseworker, which is devastating because she recently passed.
Oh.
Yeah. So, yeah, but that's crazy. So that she was, you know, there.
Yeah.
And I kind of made a joke to my dad. I'm like, did you get pushed to the front of the line? He's like, well, we were waiting for 5 years. I don't think so. And that's crazy. So my parents were
long time to
like pillars of the community, really great people. And I hate to say in the 80s that people weren't as forward thinking, but they were a straight white couple who had money, had already successfully adopted an adjusted baby, and they waited 5 years.
Yeah, and I actually just spoke to a friend today that reached out randomly because they saw our post or whatever, and she actually said that she knows nothing about, well, when she read the title of Origins Unknown, she had no idea what that was referencing, and then when she heard it was about adoption, she got the connection, but then she said, look, my experience growing up, it was families that had a lot of money in the States, that is, in America. It was families that had a lot of money that could just adopt babies and give them great homes. And it almost seemed more like a privilege than anything else back in like the 80s. So yeah, it's all perspective. It's, you know.
What did you say to me when I told you that I was adopted as well?
Oh, yeah. So I hate to say this. So when she told me originally when we first met that she was adopted, I guess my knee-jerk reaction always, when I think of children that are adopted, I always think of people like myself in the sense of people of color. So because my whole family is white, everyone's well-to-do, lawyers, doctors. What was confusing to me in the beginning was and I guess you're maybe the second or third Caucasian person I've met that is adopted. I just don't associate white people being adopted for some reason. And I know that sounds totally ludicrous and crazy and naive and whatever you want to call it. But
it's also less apparent. So you probably know a lot of adopted Caucasian people who are adopted into Caucasian homes that you don't know. We don't wear...
Possibly.
Right? Like I found out a lot of people that I had no idea were adopted from doing this, that I've grown up with for like 3 decades, and we just like didn't say anything.
Well, I guess for me, anyone that I've known that is adopted has always been very open about it.
Because you're adopted and you're visibly adopted.
Yeah. But I mean, even my friends, I mean, I probably have maybe 2 friends that are white that were adopted by white families. And I mean, they were very open about it. But
did you say you were adopted first?
I honestly, I don't have to say it because all I have to do is like look at my parents, and
that's what I mean.
Yeah,
like it's like it's shown right away. So you're like, oh, you must be adopted.
Yeah, that's true.
So like for me, for like the rest of us, we're just like,
yeah. And I felt terrible because I just thought, why is she doing a podcast about adoption? Like she's white, and then I'm like, why did I just think that? That was
like I have a type. It's adopted people. Well, and it's like really funny too because like. You just like don't think of it, right? And like
it's just ignorance.
There's been people who have said like to me, they're like, oh, I didn't know you're adopted, and like I sometimes have just like met them 2 weeks ago. I'm like, I don't usually like lead them with that. Like, hi, I'm adopted. Also, my name is Claire.
No one leads. Well, I mean, anyone
because I forget I'm adopted a lot, right?
Yeah.
I don't know.
And I think for Claire and I, you know, we were fortunate enough to be adopted into families that weren't struggling financially. So, I have friends that were adopted into families that were maybe abusive, or it was kind of a problem home. And so that's a very different situation.
So, yeah.
And I would say, maybe common, I don't know.
I've been doing a lot of research into that. And just to give a brief overview, we're going to have some people on who have different experiences than ours. But one of the commonalities is that when you're pushed this beautiful story, you assume every home that people are adopted to are going to be great.
You always think that.
You think that. And like there are people who've been abused physically, emotionally, mentally, sexually.
Yeah.
And the problem is because there is so much uncertainty. We even said, we're like, what happens if you don't want your adopted kid? We didn't even know what happened.
Yeah.
Right? Like, because there's that feeling of like, you were chosen, you were grateful. And otherwise you're going to go into the system. Mm-hmm. Right? Like, it's just insane to me.
The second half of this portion of this podcast is going to be, I think, some questions that I personally have that if I have, maybe other listeners have also. So, like I said on the previous podcast, the idea of open adoption and closed adoption is still very foreign to me. I was not aware of the concepts. It was just new to me. So I'm still a little fuzzy on open and closed and what that means for both parties, the birth parents and the adoptee.
Yes.
So we are doing a little research on this, but I think that that's important for a lot of our listeners to hear because, we talk about a lot of things and we will be talking about a lot of topics on this podcast. And sometimes terminologies or concepts are just going to literally go over most of our heads because we're just not well versed in this stuff. So I will do my best to play devil's advocate here and just ask some questions.
And as we mentioned Chris's story on episode 2 about how you had this very private time where you cried into your boba tea?
Yeah,
Boba tea.
during Twinsters.
And then got to have your dinner.
Thanks, Samantha Futerin.
Actually, I had a visceral reaction to that movie too.
Yeah.
One thing that actually happens with me, completely on a tangent, I get told multiple times that people have seen my doppelganger. And I'm always like, ask them if their mom gave up a baby in 1987. Like, I get that probably once a month, to the point where my dad's girlfriend at the time was like, I swear I saw Claire in an airport in Paris with the same backpack. So I don't know, but...
I get a lot of those comments, but it's always people thinking that all Asians look the same, so that's different.
So, I will say that, you guys, I'm experiencing this real time right now. Being an adoptee and just being my own weird self, whatever layers that is. I might not have answers for everything. Adoptees don't usually do this publicly, but I felt like it was important to do it with you guys on here. Mm-hmm. So if you have questions, I actually found the press release of...
Open closed or?
Oh, no, the new legislation from 2017.
Oh, okay.
From a Saskatchewan publication.
Okay. But before we go over that, let's just go over like the terminology and the definition of closed and open.
Okay. And I'll do it from my understanding. We can apply links, but I want to do it in a broad spectrum so that it applies not just to Saskatchewan.
Yes.
So a closed adoption means that you have relinquished your parental rights and your access to that child. There will not be an ongoing relationship.
So no connection.
No connection. So usually there is, in terms of Saskatchewan, a 30-day, apparently at the time I was adopted, position where they could come back, which is very terrifying for an adoptive parent.
Yeah, I think both parties. Yeah.
Yeah. And that was after that such time. And I believe you had to be proven as a fit parent.
Got it.
At that time too. So there was, I believe, a level of protection. So closed adoption means that after that 30-day period, you will not be able to have any access to that child.
Okay, so then open obviously is the opposite, where you can eventually have contact and communication and stuff like that.
Yes.
Okay.
And there was no option, as far as I'm concerned, for a open adoption in the 80s for a government adoption. Private adoption, though, it was sometimes, when it was a private adoption, the biological mother had a bit more of the control. So she could stipulate that she only wanted an open adoption. A lot of other things that would happen to you in Saskatchewan was that a relative would adopt that child and it would wind up being the birth mother's cousin or even sibling.
Got it. So
And
what's
just
a
not talked
private
about.
adoption opposed to a closed adoption?
So a private adoption, which could still be a closed adoption, was done outside of the government.
Got it.
So a lot of private the only
Like
way...
a third party type of thing.
Exactly, yeah. So it was usually something that was brokered between two people who knew each other with a separate lawyer.
Got it.
Yes.
So
and
like, yeah, just two people would say, hey, like, let's just do this because we know each other and we trust each other and let's just, you know.
Well, it's like that email we got where someone reached out to this person and said, do you want my baby? So that was the first instances of open adoption or people who would know. And so there was great things with that because you would pass the lineup, not waiting for 5 years. But then the problem with that therein lied that this person would know where your child was.
Yes.
And then your child knows where that person is.
Yeah.
I've known birth mothers who have had open adoptions and they quite love it. However, these people were very well adjusted.
Yeah, I mean, that's the problem is that it's almost like a lottery because there are so many moving parts. So down to just like the developmental, you know, stages of a person, you know, like can they adjust? Can they assimilate? Can they feel like they don't have glaring things in their face where it's going to cause trauma or, you know, whatever it may be. So, I mean, it's really complicated.
And there's no right answer.
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of, in the research I was doing during the break, people were asking, what's better, closed or open? It's not. It's literally, when you go to your favorite restaurant, you have two favorite options. You pick one or the other. There's going to be great about either, you know.
Yeah, there's pros and cons to everything, but I think it also purely depends on the moment and the circumstance and
the person.
Yeah, the person and
case by case basis.
They're even down to just, you know, third party, like family and support systems and community and other things that can drastically affect that. So, but yeah, let's discuss what you had looked up on.
Okay. And again, so apparently it's making the new rules made easier access. So I do know one of like my high school boyfriend was also adopted and he was trying to find his birth mother and it used to cost a lot. So I'm going to go and actually contact him and see his experience. And you actually couldn't find anything about your birth father before.
Oh, okay.
This was a new thing. So they're saying that there's a shift in perspective and that there used to be a lot of social stigma and little talk around adoption. So this was their reaction to the change in adoption stigma. Also, rather than...
Are you saying there was a negative stigma? Or...
So one of the quotes here was that not every situation is a positive situation, but certainly some are. And it's sort of recognizing that people are entitled to gather that information. And if they have the want and the need to do that, they should. And then, so the opting out. So this apparently is meant to, the veto is meant to give the empowerment to just shut off communication. So at first I thought the veto was something that I was like, well, how did I not know about this? This is actually a new tool for me that I can just cut off all.
Yep.
And then apparently
it gives you more power.
Yes. And then apparently I think that if there's a veto in reading this, there is a passive way where apparently my birth parents could have passively left their information. So if I searched, it would be there waiting for me.
Got it.
Which, like, I prefer that.
Yep.
But again, everyone's different. But yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm... yeah.
So
at this time, they said this was January 3rd, 2017. And the legislation had been passed
1st.
Had been passed 2 days prior, and they said within that time, 84 vetoes had been registered by birth parents.
Oh, wow. Wow. So that basically means the birth parents didn't want contact.
No, that's what
that means, right?
So that's actually kind of stress. Like, I could go try to find my birth family, and there'd be a veto.
So they would just which is essentially for Korean adoption. That's what they told the adoption agencies without signing any type of like contract. They just basically said, if they come back, tell them I'm dead because I can't live with that shame. Also, I'm remarried. My new husband and family have no idea that I had another child, and that would ruin my life, and I would be excommunicated from my community. So it would be very life-changing in a negative way for these women. But it was never a statement, and I'm going to sign this, and it's official, and it's a document. It's basically saying, no, if they search for me, just there's a little like note in my file, basically, or most people's files that just say, lie to them and tell them we're dead. That's crazy. I think, and again, you don't need to answer this, but I think a question that might arise from viewers or listeners is all the information that you found out today from your birth mother, it will all happen in real time.
Mother?
Or sorry, adopted mother. Sorry.
My mom.
Your mom.
See, guys, this is important that even we get
totally
caught up in the minutia of like...
It's like, whoops, wrong word. No. Adopted mother, mom. She had all these documents that she essentially just kind of kept. And I'm sure because this is happening in real time, you don't know the answer to this, but just out of curiosity, like, are there any, I don't know, thoughts in your head as to why maybe that wasn't shown to you earlier prior to today or anything like that?
So because I can text her, I tried to call her, but she was watching a movie, which I've called her 1,000 times today. So I'm glad she's doing something for herself. But I asked her, I said, did I ever ask you about what time or where I was born? I said, I know people are probably going to ask why I only found out now. And I said, I don't really remember asking. I don't. And I really don't remember. Okay. She said, no, you never asked much. It seemed like you didn't want to know. Didn't want to talk about it. A couple times later, when you were in your 20s, we talked about it, as I recall. But as a kid, you never wanted to know. And so
Look, so just to shed light on my family to kind of give a little perspective, I mean, my parents only told us what they were given with regards to the documents, which were all forged. So it's that concept of you only know what you know and you don't know what you don't know. So, they didn't know. So I can't fault them. I can't get angry about it because they were fed fake documents. So, I think, and again, this goes back to the idea that we are both adopted into well-to-do families, but things are different. And some 100%. People are open with it. Some people are like, I'm a little insecure about it. And maybe they just don't share those things, and it's challenging.
The thing is too, that, I couldn't find anything until I was 18 and a half. Yeah. So I feel like there is also that aspect of fanning the flame. Yeah. Right. And then my mom did say she was trying to put those in a baby book. I would have eventually gotten these items, but I don't know. I feel like, and it had nothing to do with, I don't think my mom. I think I felt so guilty asking because of societal pressure.
As adoptive parents, and we're eventually going to get adoptive parents on this podcast to kind of get their perspective, with the insecurities, the fear. Yeah. I remember when I told her I was getting a neck sleeve, she was like, hey, you're getting a turtleneck. And I'm like, I guess. And I'm like, and it was funny because I'm like, I hate turtlenecks. Like, I'm going to have a permanent turtleneck. Like, how do I feel about that? But
anyway, that's an aside. Yeah. I will say though, like one thing that I can attribute to, I remember and I don't mention things about my brother's story that are identifying or anything like that. But I remember once we talked about, would we search? And I felt this like feeling of panic because my brother's so funny. Like I always joke, I'm like, when people meet my family and they're about to walk into my family home or come to Regina, I say, well, remember this last moment where I'm the funniest and nicest Huntington, Yep. My brother's hilarious and he's always been my idol. And I remember having a panic of like, oh no, what if he has a blood sibling? I'm going to get left behind.
Yeah. And you need to understand, like, these are real emotions. Like this is, and also justified because the feeling of abandonment, I think, is prevalent. It's everywhere within adoptees. And I think we can all connect on that feeling.
Yeah.
You know, and I just think that, and I want to reiterate the fact that, you know, our situations are very, very different. And I think maybe because I've done a birth parent search and my younger sister did one and my parents did all that stuff, my parents are very open. They have no issues with us talking about this and sharing these things. And Claire's family is still kind of going through this in real time. So it's still a touchy subject. And I know that it's not, you're going to see that I'm very open about everything and I have no filter and I'll just say it.
We're very Canadian.
Yeah. And Claire might be a little more reserved, but you just need to understand the context so that all this stuff is happening now for her, where my stuff has happened 5-10 years ago.
Well,
so
yeah. And I was talking like to Chris's wife today that I didn't tell you about this, but I think that the fact of that you're wanting to do birth parent search is that because our starting lines were different.
Yeah.
I started back here. Like, I'm just finding out what time I was born. I'm 33.
Yep.
And then, so Elaine and I are excited for me to get off so I can do a birth chart.
Birth chart. Yeah.
I've never been able to do that. I'm so excited.
Which is so funny to me because, to be very honest, I don't care about a birth chart personally.
Well,
I'm like,
all the other cool girls got to do one and I could never do one. So when I was at sleepovers.
I don't even know what a birth chart is.
Well, it's, you know what, you're a boy. So I would be at sleepovers. And like all the other girls would be like doing their birth charts and they'd be like, well,
wait, is this a Canadian thing or is this like a thing?
This is a thing.
What?
It's a thing.
Like this is a sleepover thing?
Like girls, yeah. We did light as a feather, stiff as a board.
Did you freeze each other's bras? Like that was an American thing. No?
No.
I don't know.
The fact that you thought I was wearing a bra in high school, thank you. Thank you. I was a gymnast. So
Oh, yeah.
I think I was like 4'9" in grade 11. Anyway, we did light as a feather, stiff as a board. We would do like the MASH thing, like how many husbands would you have?
Oh my Lord, no.
Yeah, we would do.
any of it.
We were a boy. We would do that, and then they would do birth charts, and they'd always be like, "What time were you born at? What city?" And I was like, "I don't know." And then it would be like super awkward. They're like, "Oh, well."
You know what we
You can
did?
just watch what?
We would draw on people's faces with permanent marker, and we would put each other's hands in warm water while they slept. That's really the extent of what we did.
This is why I locked the door.
Yeah. Oh, one other question, which I guess I was curious about, which leads to maybe other people being curious about. Regina, knowing that you were born there, is that...
Huge.
Yeah, so explain, why is that huge?
Okay, so, and I confirmed with my mom, for whatever reason, I've always had it in my head that I was born in Prince Albert, Saskatchewan. Well, not
Why?
always. I don't know. I think I was dropped that nugget, or I found it, or someone mentioned it in passing, or...
Okay,
like,
so you just held on to that.
I held on to that. I picked it up, and I know nothing, right?
Okay, for American listeners, what's the difference between those places? Regina and, what did you say?
Regina and Prince Albert. So
Prince
Prince
Albert.
Albert is a very small place, and we used to actually go there for gymnastics competitions and whatnot. And I remember being like there at gymnastics competitions.
By the way, we're both cheerleaders. That's a fun fact. Sorry.
One of
Former cheerleaders.
One of us retained our flexibility, but that's okay.
Oh no, yeah. I'll share that TikTok. I have no shame. Like, it's fine. Anyway, Prince Albert and Regina.
So I remember we would actually go there for gymnastics competitions, and I'd be looking around and trying to see if there's people that looked like me.
Okay, so that just stems from the fact that you really thought
I thought
Prince
this.
Albert was where you
I don't
were.
know where I got this from, and
Okay.
it's that part of my reunion roller coaster. It's the fantasy.
Got
So
it.
my two fantasies were that I was from Prince Albert, Saskatchewan, and
Wait, do you have a fantasy about your birth parents or like what they were like in high school?
no.
I've thought about this all the time.
Okay, go ahead. You first.
I always pictured my birth father being a jock and my birth mother being a cheerleader. I don't know why. And I don't know if it's the copious amounts of
Riverdale.
cheesy rom-coms that I've watched or like American films, but I always
Archie.
thought they got hooked. They hooked because, again, remember, I thought my birth mother was 17, 16. So I thought maybe they hooked up at like some high school party and then she got
Softball?
pregnant. Yeah.
The
And then,
Sadie Hawkins dance?
yeah, no, is that when a girl asks a boy?
Yeah, they don't have that in Korea, I don't think.
No. But that's how I always pictured it. And I was like, yeah. So like, because I'm athletic, so I always pictured my birth father maybe being athletic. And I don't know. That's what I always pictured. I don't know why. And again, that is purely because of the influence of American films. But
I picture my birth parents as being like young hot dummies.
that's kind of what because
Like, one of them has to be jacked. I would like to be the new triplet.
Yeah. Well, we have a lot of friends that have considered themselves the fourth triplet, so we might need to call up a couple of people. It's kind of like Letterkenny. It's like, who's the toughest guy in Letterkenny? Who's the fourth triplet? Like,
Me.
Who's officially the fourth triplet? We need to square this off and figure it out.
I will get everyone.
Yeah.
Okay, so my fantasy, and I was trying to explain this to my nephew when we went to Harry Potter World.
I've never been, and I've always wanted to go.
Okay, we'll go. When things are... Maybe we'll go on my birthday at 8:46 p.m.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I was reading the books as I was going through things, and I was the right age. So I think I was about to be 11 or soon after.
Mm-hmm.
So on my 11th, the eve before my 11th birthday, like I literally packed up all of my stuff. I was 100% that I was going to Hogwarts. I packed up
my God.
all my ish. I believe I said goodbye to my brother. And like, I can't remember, but like, and I was just
Did you have a stuffed owl?
No, I had a teddy bear named Ted. The first thing I was given when I was adopted was this teddy bear named Ted. Called him Mr. Ted. And he literally had like, I still have him. He's on my bed because I'm an adult. But he has like a bald spot where my like little hand would hold him.
Yeah. So I showed you that picture where my brothers and I all had blankets that were crocheted by my grandmother's friend. And so there's different colors. We have 3 identical ones. But my brothers, for some reason, Jeremy and Justin like to rub their blankies to a point where now they don't exist. Like they're just pieces in a plastic bag. I, for some reason, never touched mine. So my brothers consider my blankie in mint condition. So they will periodically ask me to send them pictures of it. Or when they are here, they go looking for it because they want to like, it's the weirdest ever. I don't know why. And they're like, oh, it's like mint. Oh, this is like brand new. And I'm like, dude, this is weird.
Touching my blankie.
Stop touching my blankie. Like, no.
Oh my gosh.
But yeah.
But his name was Mr. Ted. And so here's the funny thing is that I was so upset. I still remember we were in our motorhome. It was a bad day for me. We were in our motorhome driving and I found out he had a bald spot right here. And then I lost my jelly shoe. You're a boy, so you won't understand, in a river. It was just a bad day. So I was watching the Goonies. So that year for Christmas, I got a brand new .0 bear.
Okay, wait, hold on. There's so much going on. You just said jelly, Goonies, and .0 bear?
Yeah.
What's that?
Like .0 was like a fancy brand. So essentially, like they got me I think it might have been from New York. I think they got me the fanciest bear.
Like Harrods
yes,
bear? Okay.
I think they got me like a Harrods bear or something that happened to have like a .0 zip up sweater.
Got it.
And so I was given this bear as a child, and how my nanny at the time said that she knew that I was going to be a good person. The first thing that I did was grab this new bear and unzip the hoodie, rip it off of him, and put his hoodie on Ted, and then discard the new bear. So like that.
I'm curious actually and we can get feedback from other adoptees. Like, is there an
attachment to an item?
Yeah, like an item, a blankie, or a doll.
A sensory thing maybe?
Yeah, I'm sure there is.
But so yeah, I had.
Or maybe we were just super spoiled and we got cool toys. I don't know. Because I remember growing up, like we got 3 of everything, and it was funny. I went home a couple of years ago. My parents were selling their house in Texas and they wanted us to go through all our old toys. So we have literally Ninja Turtles, Ghostbusters, He-Man. And WWF.
How dare you? We literally would only get that stuff when my dad would go to the States.
Yeah. So think of, like, I was looking on eBay. We were thinking about trying to resell things. And there is an action figure in the Ninja Turtle line back in the 80s, 90s when we got these things. It was called Mondo Gecko, and I'll never forget him. I have him over there. I love him. But apparently when we looked him up on the internet, Mondo Gecko was one of the rarest Ninja Turtle action figures you could possibly find, and we got 3 of them. Obviously, we took them out of the boxes, so now they're not worth that much, but it just goes to show how obviously spoiled we were. So I always wonder, like, do I have an attachment to like my Skeletor action figure or Michelangelo or whatever it is, because obviously we were afforded nice things and my parents could afford those things, or is it a common link with all adoptees regardless of income and whatever social status, that there was something regardless of what it was you had an attachment to? Because maybe that's similar from just all children, all people. I don't know. I don't know.
And it's really hard for us to separate that from other stuff.
Yeah.
And then getting back into the story where we went on a tangent.
Yeah.
So
we're totally on a tangent right now.
I packed all my stuff because I was legit thought I was going to Hogwarts.
That's right. Okay, go on.
I went, and then I stayed up all night waiting for Hagrid all night. And I woke up the next morning and I was so devastated. And I don't think my brother knew, but he was just like a really kind soul. And like woke up the next morning like.
But you said you went to Harry Potter World.
Yeah, I did.
Did you go to the wand shop?
Okay, so here's the best part. We went really early, and then my mom, who's always fostered my love of reading, I think I was reading Goosebumps books.
Oh gosh.
Really early. Like I can crush a novel in no time flat. It was always a joke, and this is before e-readers. So my mom would have a box, and I would literally crush all those novels. Like I can still read so fast. It's at the point where like anyone who's ever like lived.
Did
with
those
me
Goosebumps books like
scare the dickens out of me? Yeah. Oh yeah. Hugely. I had no business reading a lot of the things I read. But anyway, so I was just like so excited. So my mom and I, it just happened. It was so fast. We went into like the wand selection ceremony, and it was my mom and I. So cool. And it was early, and so we got in super quick, and we were in there with like a bunch of kids. And so here, you think that they'd pick the kid. No, I'm like, as you guys can see my facial reactions, I'm like
rocking back and forth, like
so. I was so excited, and it was so cute. My mom had her old phone, and like she has the video, and she's giggling, and the guy selected me, and I got to do like the
nice.
And I'm not going to.
Do you have your wand?
I do.
Still? Yeah.
I do. And so it was the interactive wand, of course, and it was like cost so much money, but I got it. And then my nephew and I were just like, Wingardium Leviosa, swish and flick.
We just watched all the movies.
I just watched
marathon.
number 3, so.
Yeah. Well, I remember Goosebumps was a series of books that I just couldn't read all the time because it did scare me. And then I was going to school in Singapore, and Roald Dahl came to visit. So I remember seeing Roald Dahl, and this was a month before he passed away, which is kind of weird. It was like a month or two.
Did you?
But we had, but no.
Okay.
But we I love witches and James and the Giant Peach, BFG, Matilda, Charlie and Chocolate Factory, all love those books.
But this is a super quick interlude. Apparently adopted children have a huge affinity for supernatural stories, origins unknown. And it's super common for us to get tied into fiction.
Yep.
And one of my best friends who's adopted as well, we do this thing where we will text each other and it'll be like Stranger Things. And this is not a real thing. Or we'll say insert episode, whatever TV show it is, episode 2, season 1, 1057, adoption twist. So if you ever watch Once, though, I was just like, Once, episode 1.
Well, that's what I loved about Matilda was that it was this book about this child that didn't feel like she belonged, obviously, to her family because they were polar opposites. She obviously was just hyper intelligent and led to obviously other things. And I just gravitated towards that. And then even Charlie and Chocolate Factory, I'm like, oh man, I feel like my family was the chocolate factory for me. So I always viewed that as I was Charlie with I had a great, or whatever the situation was in Korea, but then I got this lottery ticket to go to the United States. And obviously,
And you bought a golden ticket.
I actually did. That's another story. One of my brothers, Justin, buys a lot of movie props and he sent me he's part of this I didn't know there was a subculture of people that just want to buy movie props. And so he's like, hey, look at this golden ticket. It's like an actual replica of the golden ticket. And I'm like, oh my God, I don't know why I need to buy that, but buy now. And it was definitely an impulse buy. So
one of my favorite podcasts, and that's why we drink. She bought the Blue's Clues cabinet.
Really?
Yeah.
How much was that?
I don't know. We could message her. I just want to message her anyway. But yeah, so it's the first step of the reunion roller coaster is fantasy.
Yeah.
And so your fantasy, not only of you being special or I was given of the Superman, you were given up because you know what I mean?
I'm wondering, that's a good question, whether or not our adoptees' tastes in films and like pop culture and stuff like that, does it gravitate towards, you know, supernatural? And like, you know, for me, it's, you know, we all love superheroes, but like for me, it was just this, you know, it was almost like an escape where I felt like, you know,
saw yourself in
because we all have, and I think that's the same for everyone in general when they see a superhero, because they see themselves maybe, or they want to see themselves. But I wonder if that's a prevalent thing within adoptees.
Well, I can say right now that I'm pretty shocked. I was for sure thought that I was born in Prince Albert. So right now I'm trying to register like the checks and balances and balance the books right now between what I thought and what was actually there. So
yeah, and that's really, I think, a common story for most adoptees that start doing birth parent searches, because we create these dialogues and these stories in our head, and then when you get the real facts, it goes back to that idea we were talking about, that you're opening a door. You need to just be okay with whatever you find, and that's kind of what we're trying to say to everyone out there that wants to do a birth parent search, is that, look, ignorance is bliss, but if you want to go down this path, just know that you're going to have the support, but more importantly, it's okay to maybe find something that might be a little jarring.
That's something that wasn't what you thought. So.
Yeah. So, well, we're about at that time. I just want to thank everyone for listening. I know tuning in, and I know we went off on a little tangent there, but
because this was a real episode.
Yes.
This was two friends talking about what we found.
Yeah.
So we talked about our different formats. This is going to be, our personal stories are likely going to be much more informal.
Yes.
Also, the questions, if you guys have questions for me or for Chris, email us at hello@originsunknownpodcast.com. Feel free to ask questions. We might not answer them.
Because remember, we're learning as we go here. So if there is a topic that you want to ask about, or you're unsure of, or you need more information, I think, what is he saying, Letterkenny? More hands make less work.
Make less work or make work light.
Yeah. So like
pitter patter, let's get at her.
Yeah. So we want to basically collectively work together here. So
even databases and stuff too.
Yeah.
So I found out today that ancestry.ca has an adoption area that they're trying to find. I didn't find it. It didn't do anything for me. But even like resources and other stuff, like we want to share information, even things like your stories. So what was your fantasy? What was your fantasy? And like for our listeners, what do you view? What's your backstory that you've created for your parents?
Yeah.
Follow us on Instagram, Origins Unknown Podcast.
Yeah. And, thank you for sitting with us for an hour.
I'm going to go ugly cry.
And I will pour her a drink. Yeah. So thank you guys. We will see you next time.
If you'd like to connect with us on Instagram or TikTok, you can find us at
Origins Unknown Podcast.
You can follow my co-host at
Beyond the Tats.
You can find me at
Sea Bear Huntington. We're also on Twitter. Follow us at
Unknown Podcast. If you'd like to visit our website, it's
originsunknownpodcast.com. Also, if you'd like to send us questions, share your story, or even just say hi, you can send us an email at
hello@originsunknownpodcast.com. Special thanks to Pace Randolph for writing, performing, and producing the audio for our podcast. Follow him on Spotify for more wonderful music.